All right, so if you're not familiar with how we name notes using the musical alphabet, you should probably watch the video about that. I think I compressed it down to about as simple an explanation as I could, and I hope it makes sense. There's going to be some PDFs as well to help you out with this video. We're going to take the 12 notes we talked about in the musical alphabet, and we're going to narrow it down to 7 notes. It's a much more workable number. In other words, we're going to take this range of 12 notes, sometimes called the chromatic scale, where you're playing every note, and we are going to subtract 5 notes. So last video, we just talked about how to find any note on the guitar using the musical alphabet, how to give a name to any note on the guitar. Another name for playing every note on the guitar is the chromatic scale. That's where you're just playing all the way up, all the sharps, all the flats, all 12 notes. It takes an awful lot of knowledge to be able to use all 12 notes. And the way to start is to limit your palette a little bit. And that's where things like the major scale come in. So in the major scale, we're limiting ourselves to 7 of the 12 notes. And so the major scale is a formula of half steps and whole steps that you learn, and then that allows you to find any major scale on the guitar. So let's unpack that a little bit. Now, a whole step on the guitar is skipping a fret. A half step is 2 frets right next to each other. So I said a second ago, the major scale is a pattern of whole steps and half steps. Let's look at the E major scale, okay? And like I said, you're going to want to know how to name notes on the neck before you dive into this. Okay, if you look at the PDF for the major scale, you'll see that the pattern goes, you start with your first note of the scale, and then you do a whole step, so you would skip a fret. So from the open string to the 2nd fret. Then there's another whole step, so from the 2nd fret to the 4th fret. Then there's a half step, so 4th to 5th fret. Whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So again, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And that should sound pretty familiar, right? It's just good old do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So that was the E major scale. Now, it's important to realize what we're doing is we're taking the string and we're applying this formula of half steps, whole steps. So in other words, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And that is giving us the E major scale. We want to look at what notes we just played. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Okay? Now in the key of E, you call all these notes sharp. And the rule to help you understand this is that you only want one of each letter name. You want every letter name from E to E to be represented in your scale. So we have E, and then we have an F sharp, so that takes care of F, a G sharp, an A B, a C sharp, a D sharp, and an E. So in other words, we don't want to have an E flat and an E in our scale, because then we are missing a D and we have 2 E's, and it's just going to cause confusion. So you want to have one of each of your notes in there, and we do by giving them all sharps. Okay? You're not going to find any keys where there's a mixture of sharps and flats in the key. The notes are either going to be assigned sharps in the key or flats in the key. So you'll hear musicians talk about sharp keys and flat keys. This E is a sharp key in terms of having 4 sharps. It doesn't have any flats. It's got an F sharp, a G sharp, a C sharp, and a D sharp, right? Okay. That's the formula for the major scale. It's good to try working it up and down the strings and get a sense of how it's created. It's a little harder to see the logic of it when you're playing it across strings, which is what the PDFs are going to have you doing, because you're going to want to try and learn how to play these up and down the strings just within the first 3 or 4 frets. Because in the music we're talking about, we're usually down here backing somebody up, and if we want to do a little note run from a major scale, it's going to be in this range of these first 4 frets, right? So what you're going to want to do is print out the PDFs or use them on your computer, and you're going to want to practice the 5 major scales that I gave you up and down the strings in this position down here in these first frets. Okay, they're all different, and they're all really useful. And it's, if anything, it's just at the very least, it's a very good finger workout, getting your dexterity together in this part of the guitar. So in the song videos, you're going to see me, for instance, in the key of G, you're going to see me play runs from the G major scale, that kind of thing, okay? And that is where, having spent some time limbering your fingers up and finding and knowing the notes of the G major scale, that's where it's going to pay dividends, because you're going to want to have those under your fingers when we're learning bass note runs in the other videos.